for everyone. And in this very room, there's quite enough joy for everyone. And there's quite enough peace and quite enough power to walk through our every fear. Oh, Spirit is in this very room, in this very room, in this very room.
It a little bit because I don't have my glasses, so bear with me. The secret power of faith is a conscious union of the soul with the oversoul. Realizing that God is ever-present reality, I know that I cannot escape my union with the infinite. Therefore, I know I am touched with the spirit of wholeness, filled with everything that the perfection of this divine spirit must contain. My being is so close to the divine that there is no separation whatsoever. If ye abide in me, and my words abide in you, ye shall ask what ye will, and it shall be done unto you. I understand the meaning of thought, that no one can shut the doorways of self-expression. I understand that there is no problem that cannot be solved. I realize that the truth is already established, and that the power of good is mine today in all of its completion and perfection, in all of its purity and peace, in all of its wonder and joy. Knowing that I abide in the spirit of truth, and the spirit of truth abides in me today, I open my consciousness to a greater acceptance of life. I realize that my entire being is in the hands of a higher power, that my thought is unbridled by divine will, that my mind responds completely to the indwelling presence that is God. I fast from fear and feast upon faith. For I am certain that every good thing that God has intended for me exists right here where I am. Acknowledging my good, I enter into the banquet hall of life. I recognize the Spirit is my heart. I recognize that all others are unified with me in the spirit of good. I pray without ceasing because I live in perfect faith. That's from 365.
You are the heart, you are the hands, you are the voice of spirit on earth.
Well, then it goes from you to we to I.
Right, I'm getting to that. And all you are, and all you do is a blessing to the world. So we'll start out with that. Go to the other words. You are the hand, you are the hands, you are the voice of spirit on earth. Try that. You are the heart, you are the hands, you are the voice of spirit on earth. And all you are, and all you do is a blessing to the world. And all you are, and all you do is a blessing to the world. Beautiful song. Thanks.
God is good. Together, let's do what we say every time we come together. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful and committed individuals can make a difference in the world. Indeed, that's all it ever has. Thank you, Margaret Mead, for this beautiful motto, this slogan, this anthem, however you want to, this affirmation, the recognition that within me, through me, and as me, and within and through and as all creation, there's something that's making a difference. And the reason why we know something's making a difference, because we recognize, and I like the recognize is to recognize, to know again, that there's something called a difference maker. And the difference maker is the substance and the strata, the underlying foundation and the formation of everything that exists. And so when we recognize that there is something called the difference maker, which is the indwelling and self-existent presence of the divine or of God, the infinite universe, the absolute mind, however we choose to address this idea of what God is, that this thing called God, this idea called God is a difference maker. It's a game changer. This is why people, when they don't know what to do, when we don't know what to do, when we find ourselves in conflict, we go to that quote unquote, some people like to call it the higher power, and then some people call it the inner power. But let's just say that there's something that we can turn to. There's an idea that we can plumb, that pulls up from the depths of us the very best of who we are and what we are. And when we rely on that activity to always be present, that thing, that circumstance, that idea is always making a difference. And the reason why it makes a difference is because it recognizes that there is no difference. And this is just flow. It recognizes that there is no difference. And because there's no difference, there's no reason to react as if something different is going on. When we know, as we know, that God is all there is and we are one with God, we can be absolutely calm in the greatest tempest, in the greatest storm, because we know that which calms the sea, if you will, that idea that anchors us deeper than the turbulence, deeper than the storm, is always present, and we go to that place. And the more we go to that place, the easier it is to get to that place. And when I say go to that place and get to that place, I don't want us to be confused as if there's a place that we actually have to travel to, but more that it is an awareness of just how powerful and just how magnificent we are. And so that activity it requires us to be still. Just long enough to allow the dissipation of what some have called the monkey mind. That thing that's always thinking, that thing that's always looking for a problem or looking for this we'll talk about as a problem. That thing that's always sees separation, and that it's a reaction to physical phenomena, or even when I say physical phenomena, I'm also talking about the invisible physical, which is the radio waves and television and all these things we're being bombarded with every day, every second, that tells us that there's a separation in the world, and that separation creates good and evil, up and down, right and wrong, and that you always want to be, I'm remembering, I remember Romper Room. I'm sure some of us here remember Romper Room, and it's like, I always do what's right. I never do anything wrong. I'm a romper room doobie. I doobie all day long. It's like I used to watch that. She'd be looking in her magic mirror to see if she could see people. You know what I'm talking about? But this idea that I'm a doobie, is coming up right now. And it's like even there was this recognition that whatever you're doing, the being is more important. Even though she was talking about bees in particular, I'm using that as a metaphor right now, that the being is more important than the doing, because when you work on who you are being, everything you do comes from that place. And so when we recognize the divine idea that God is all there is, and I am one with God, and that my activity of being still accesses that awareness of the oneness of God that I am, as I can be still long enough to let that idea percolate within me and saturate my consciousness in every aspect of it, then I actually get to be the presence in that moment. And while we're being the presence, anything, this is what the master teacher said when he said, ask in my name, and it'll be given to you. Knock and the door shall be open, ask and it shall be given unto you. It's given because we come from a place, the thing that we're asking for is not separate from who we are. And so this is the game changer. This is the difference maker in consciousness. When we recognize that there is no separation between me and anything else. And it gets to the place where we recognize there's no such thing as between. Everything is inclusive. Everything is inclusive. Someone said, if I spot it, I got it. And I always like to remember that's a nice little thing for me to recognize, because sometimes I realize it's hard for you to believe that an exalted being such as myself might actually go into a place where sometimes there's some judgment. But when I find myself judging, when I find myself blaming, when I find myself pulling up from me the memory of all the times I've been wronged and the times people have wronged me, then it's important for me to go to that place where I remember there's no separation. If I spot it, I got it. And whatever I'm looking at right now is just a projection of what I have within me. This is a huge game changer, because it means I'm no longer a victim. This is freeing us from the victimization we impose upon ourselves, because we have an understanding that something bad is actually out there and is trying to get us, that there's some great evil out there that can overwhelm us, and if I'm not very, very careful, then this thing will consume me. And it shows up in sometimes very little insignificant things. Very little insignificant things. You know, it's like somebody might try to cheat me out of my money. Somebody might try to, there's all these different ideas. We don't need to go into that because we don't want to be, well, at least from my perspective, the damage collectors. And that's where I'm always collecting the harm and the wrong, and I'm always looking, I'm always keeping score to see, you know, the quote unquote bad in the world. You know, I'm pulling up an image right now of what they call that baseball, what they call it, I don't know what, I guess it's instructional league ball, where they don't keep score. They just, every side gets, you're up for 10 minutes, you put as many to bat as you want to, and then the other team's up 10 minutes, you get as many to bat as you can get in there, and they just do that for 8, 9 innings, and then the game is over. And nobody's keeping score, the kids just get to play ball. And nobody's trying to win, and nobody's trying to well, nobody's ever trying to lose. But what's interesting is I've been to games like this, and the adults in the stands know exactly what the score is. The kids are not keeping score. But the adults in the stands know who's winning, who's losing, who's cheating, who's, you know, the ref is being favored this way. And it's really amazing. I'm saying, wow, in this moment of pure bliss where, you know, everybody can be acknowledged and everybody can participate, there's still the idea that somebody has to win and somebody has to lose. And this idea that somebody has to win means somebody always has to lose. But when we recognize that they're winning and losing as partners, two sides of the same coin. And sometimes the loss itself is greater than the victory. When I say that, I mean what we gain from the loss. It's what Rilke meant when Rilke said, that which we fight is so tiny that we become small just by fighting it. But that which fights us is so great that we become stronger by surrendering to this greater authority that shapes and molds us in our losses, because we recognize there's something more powerful than my petty idea of winning and losing in this particular circumstance. And so this is what I'm talking about when we talk about making a difference. It means that, you know what, there's a scripture, and I'm sorry, I'm just having a lot of scriptures these days, but this is one that's always helped me. Is it says, 1,000 fell on my left, and 10,000 fell on my right, and no harm became me. Man, that's just a good feeling. It's like whatever's going around me, I don't have to worry about how many people are failing, how many people not making it, what it looks like around me, because I know that right here and right now, the power and the presence of the divine is operating through me, in me, and as me. And so, you know, it's easier to get the idea that it's in me because, you know, oh, God is in me. You know, we get, you know, this, what are they doing, the double stuffed Oreos now, so we know how stuff gets in things, okay? We get in me. And the through me is the piece where my movements is that divine activity moving through me. You know, in a traditional church, you know, there's this, I feel the Spirit moving. they recognize that there's a movement of the presence of the divine, a movement of the Holy Spirit, and they call it a movement because they feel it moving into their being. I'd like to say that when we feel the presence moving into our being, what's really happening is we're activating the divine presence, which is always there. We're simply just, leaving the gate open enough for it to get out this time and do something beautiful in our lives. And so this is the difference maker. And I'm remembering what you said in your reading about fasting on the fear and feasting on the faith.
Mm-hmm.
Fasting on the fear and feasting on the faith. And so fear is something, people, that is normal. There's nothing wrong with fear. Fear is a natural occurring phenomena, and what it does, it gives us a heightened sense of awareness. And in that heightened sense of awareness, we're actually able to do a great many things because we're in a heightened sense of awareness. Now, what we can do with that heightened sense of awareness is let the thing that we fear be the reason why I have this heightened sense of awareness. And because I fear this thing and I have this heightened sense of awareness, I have a heightened sense of what fear is. Are you with me so far when I say this? Thank you. Because the truth is, once we're in that heightened sense of awareness, we want the heightened sense to fall in line with whatever our faith is, whatever our belief is, whatever the divine idea about us is, and we take that same relationship that we talk about called fear, and we allow it to heighten our awareness of the truth of who we are. And all it takes is a shift in awareness from an external reference point, as Deepak likes to call it, into an internal reference. Instead of thinking that my good is out there, that there's somebody out there that can harm me, or that, even we talk about the law of attraction, where, my good is being attracted to me from someplace else. We get caught up in this idea that it has to come from out there. And it keeps us in an egocentric model where we're always separate from our good. But we want to remember that there's something about us that transcends separation. There's something about us that transcends this idea of between and betwixt. And it's like, if we're both if I'm in a pool with a ball and I want the ball, I can just bring the ball to me like this. You know what I'm saying? How you can be in the water and you do this and something comes to you? Well, it's coming to me because it's not separate. Me, the ball, and the water are all one thing. And so when we recognize that everything that we desire, every circumstance, every situation is one thing, we do what they say in the Quran. We just simply say that there's one of my favorite quotes, like I have a whole lot of them, but one of my favorite quotes in the Quran says, when Allah wishes a thing to be, he simply says, kun, faya, kun, which translates what I believe is to be, and it is. And so we become aware of the realization that whatever I am becoming, whatever I am coming into in my realization, this is the truth about me. And so I'm constantly watching, what is it that I believe about myself? What am I becoming? What am I allowing to be the truth about me? And I can always check that by the words that come out of my mouth and the thoughts that come to my head. And I talked last week or a couple of weeks ago about that inner dictator that's always, that's the damage collector that's keeping score. But there's also a presence of being that recognizes, even the dictator is part of the oneness. Even the critical mind is part of the oneness. Even that part of me that's judging is God in action, and it's an opportunity for me to exercise my consciousness. Now, when I say exercise my consciousness, this is a literal translation, because what I know is the more difficult the challenge seems to be, and it becomes difficult because I'm afraid. It becomes difficult because I'm angry. It becomes difficult because perhaps I'm ambivalent, but something has happened where I'm not feeling whole, perfect, and complete. And what that means is, yes, what that means is I'm just seeing right now like a roof, and the rain is pelting the roof. and water is seeping through the roof. And so what's happening in my fear and my rage and all this otherness is that there's a leak in my consciousness that's beginning to pool the idea of the oneness of God, is pooling the idea of the oneness of God, so that I can focus on what needs to be focused on in my consciousness. Because if I'm having fear about something, it means that I'm not feeling whole, perfect, and complete there. And if I'm not feeling whole, perfect, and complete there, what I want to do is put my attention on that. And when I say my attention, I mean my divine attention, because the divine attention is the one that energizes that which I desire. And what I desire is more awareness of the oneness with God. So whenever we have fear, what's the quote I like is, that which I fear is the gateway to my greatness. Can you say that?
That which I
That
fear
which
is
I
Fear is the gateway to my greatness. It just, you know what, that means, wow, if I could just step through the gate. Just don't stand on the other side of my fear. Every time I see it, it's an opportunity to move forward. Every time I see it, the Spirit is calling to me from the depths of my being, saying, you are even greater than this. Move past it. And every time I do that, consciousness gets stronger, and the awareness of myself gets stronger. And the stronger that idea is within me, the deeper that idea is within me, I can go places and do things that at one point I could not do. People, here's the idea that's really shocks us. We're supposed to have opportunities that seem overwhelming. Now, I don't like to use the word supposed to, you know. I don't, some people like to call it back home. It's like I say back home, not that I'm actually from back home, but but some people say supposed to. You ever heard that? You're supposed to do this and you're supposed to do that. I'm not really into supposed to and you should and all that, but the opportunity to lift a greater weight than ever before is what happens when we're afraid. It means I'm being overwhelmed. It means the depth of who I see myself as, the breadth of who I see myself as, the height of who I see myself as, the majesty of who I see myself as is being overwhelmed by this particular circumstance, and I am feeling small now. I'm feeling weak now. I'm feeling separate now. I'm afraid now. And so the opportunity to embrace that at a deeper level and to breathe and then step through the gate of my fear into my greatness, because all the fear is telling me is there's a grand opportunity around me right now. There's a great circumstances happening around me right now, and it's only my sense of separation that causes it to look like and feel like it's outside of me. But the gateway is my recognition, the gateway is my understanding, the gateway is my activity that says move, that says step into it, that says breathe it in, that recognizes you're not separate from this, it is not separate from you, and as you become more of who you are within you, this circumstance that you're looking at, that you're seeing, you'll recognize it as part of who you are. And once you recognize it as part of who you are, you no longer fear it. This is how we overcome fear. We begin to realize that everything I'm afraid of is an aspect of who I am, and if I can breathe that thing into myself, I become more powerful, I become more wise, I become stronger, and I walk with more resoluteness, I walk with more confidence. Everything I do has a greater expansion and understanding, because the light of wholeness, the light of truth, the light of God, if you will, is shining brighter in me, and it becomes so much, though, that the light that I am, and we're all light, there's light in the body, this is proven. This is not an idea. This is not a theory. The body contains light, and that light becomes amplified as we get in touch with the truth of who we are, and people can see our light begin to shine brighter and brighter and brighter. And when they do that, when people see that, everybody, all animals are attracted to the light, okay? Now, I think even bats are. I'm not sure if that's true because they go in caves and stuff, but, their light is not so much what they see visually, but what they hear. And so that's how they recognize things. So they're hearing the way we're seeing, and they navigate and they're tracked through that activity, which is another way of seeing, which is another way of expressing light. And all I'm trying to say is the light that you are is amplified as you move through your fear. And so, today we're talking about planting seeds. And planting seeds is the realization that everything that needs to happen is already happening. And when I say that, I'm reminded of the wildfires that are right here in California, and the floods that are on the East Coast, and all the activity that looks like it's destruction. But you know, the interesting thing about our idea of destruction is that there's enough seeds in the ground right now that if we cut down every plant, we burn down every plant, the earth would refoliate itself in ways that are just as luscious and just as magnificent as it is right now, or as it ever has been, because the universe is not running out of itself. And so the earth, you know, we talk about destroying the earth, and all we could really do is perhaps make it less hospitable for us to live in, but the earth is not going anywhere. Nature's not going anywhere. Circumstances aren't going anywhere. And so as we step into the awareness that I am one with every circumstance, then that means what's happening on the East Coast, what's happening on the West Coast, what's happening anywhere is part of my consciousness. And if it's part of my consciousness, that means I make a difference. It's not something separate that's happening over there. It's happening within me. I have turbulence within me. I have drought in my awareness within me. And so we always begin to work on ourselves first because we actually believe. And when I say belief, I'm reminded of this idea. What does it go? This came to me the other day. It's like, okay, belief, intention, and expectation. This is what forms knowledge. And knowledge is what we know. Knowledge is what we know. When I say knowledge, I'm talking about that which I'm willing to act on, that which I'm willing to, I don't like to call it risk my life, but even stake my life on. I talk about it all the time. We know about gravity. We expect gravity to work all the time. We can base our lives on gravity, which is why we don't jump off buildings, because we know gravity has a profound effect when you hit the bottom. And so we want to have the same kind of knowledge about consciousness. And that means we have to line up our awareness of who we are and what we want in such a fashion that we begin to expect that activity to happen. Now, every thought, every idea, every situation, everything that's in our consciousness is a seed that's in the ground right now. And this is why, you know, sometimes it looks like things aren't changing, because we expect sometimes for the change to happen instantly. And I'm not saying change can't happen instantly. As a matter of fact, I'm saying change is happening instantly. But we're so conditioned to see the opposite of the condition that we desire in our lives. We're so conditioned to see the lack and the limitation that we believe is part of our experience, that even when the change is happening, even as the change is happening, we can see the same picture that was always there, but because we haven't grown strong enough in consciousness to just be present. And so anytime our belief, our intention, and our expectation are not in alignment with what it is we say that we desire, it's almost like, you know, you plant a seed and then you go pick it up again. You plant a seed and you go pick it up again. And okay, that's okay, but just keep putting it back in the ground. Keep allowing the fertile soil of consciousness to germinate the seed of your awareness in whatever it is that you desire. Belief, intention, expectation. What is it that I believe about myself? The things that I ask for, do I believe I can have those things? Do I believe I am one with those things? Do I believe that this activity is already within me to the degree that I can accept that this idea is whole, perfect, and complete within me? That's the idea. That's to the same degree I can set an intention based on that idea. We can't set intentions about things that we have no knowledge of and no consciousness of. In order for us to do that, there has to be an awareness within us. This is the thing that is beautiful about the realization I'm not separate from my fear or my anger. The truth is, if I spot it, I got it. That means the seed is already there. It just needs me to cultivate it in a way that's going to bring me the things, the life that I desire. The seed is already there. The seed of fear, or whatever that circumstance, is an opportunity for me to grow something beautiful and magnificent in my life. It just requires me to just let go of my own sense of frailty. Line up my belief with my intention and my expectation. So that which I believe, and when I say believe, these are the ideas that are in my head right now. Everything I've ever heard, everything I've ever thought about, every circumstance, every situation, whatever is going on anywhere, there's only one activity, that's divine activity, through which, by which, and as which I am one. And so whatever is going on anywhere is an activity in consciousness. And if it's an activity in consciousness, it's an activity within me. And since I know this, see, I know this, My belief, my intention, and my expectation is based on that idea, which means whenever we're presented with a circumstance, no matter what it is, no matter who it looks like is going to be president, whatever the weather looks like, whatever, is going on with my neighbors, what's going on in any circumstance, whatever it looks like, I know this is a divine activity because there can be nothing else. This is the seed I'm going to put in the ground. Every time I hear about anything, I see anything, all there is God, and God is all there is, and I am one with God. And so even now, this is God expressing. And so the opportunity to know this gets bigger and bigger and brighter and stronger, because there's so many places we get to sow that seed of harmony in what looks like discontent. All the thing we see on the news, Dr. Michael calls it, everything we see on the news is a prayer request calling from the depths of our own consciousness. They're saying, can you still see me now? This is God like saying, why not take all of me? Can you still see me? And when we say, yes, I see you, God. I see you, God. I recognize you, God. You know what? This is this is the soul of the practice called Ho'oponopono, where, and if you haven't heard about it, it's a beautiful Hawaiian mystical system where, basically, it is very, the basic idea is you're responsible. I'm responsible for everything that happens anywhere. That's how powerful this idea is. And that there's 4 things we say, it's like, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. And you can say these 4 in any order that it's coming to you, but the realization that I love you is the recognition that you and I are one. The apology that says I'm sorry is the realization that, you know what, for a minute there, I was confused about who you are. For a minute there, I thought you were less than whole, less than perfect, and less complete. So I love you, and I'm sorry I did that. I'm sorry. I'm bringing my conscience back into alignment with that apology. The thanks is the gratitude I have within myself, because I'm grateful that I have a system that works with unerring accuracy in my life. It's just so beautiful to have something smarter than me. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm a bit of a smart, what my dad used to call me, a wise zealot. I think I know stuff. But the beautiful thing that happened to me in my life is I became aware of a knowledge that was deeper than any knowledge that I ever could come up with. And so that once I became aware of that knowledge, I surrendered whatever knowledge I had to that. I don't want to know anything except the truth. And the truth is that God is all there is. And I don't care how angry or upset or hurt I am about a circumstance or a situation, I'm not going to allow that to be the reason that I forget who I am. I just